Hello everyone, welcome to the official part 1 of the Customizing Cooler video set, where in this case we're taking the same toy we looked at for the last review, which is the review and breakdown of Final Form Cooler from Dragon Stars Series 16, and we're customizing the figure to get the most out of it as we can. So to give you a general idea of what that means, we're going to be kind of messing with the paint job in order to try to bring out some of the details that are honestly already part of the sculpt, but honestly don't pop because it's just flat colors. We're going to try to fix a few articulation points as we can, just to get as much range as you can out of this particular figure. And also we're going to be trying to do a few tests for finishes to kind of make this blend a little more seamlessly with the figure arts figures, which make up the bulk of my collection. So as you kind of see, we're already starting right off the top. I'm actually messing around with both the neck and the head in this case with various diamond files, basically trying to sand down various bits in order to make it so that the head doesn't pop off, because that was actually the very first thing that happened when I opened this figure right out of the box, and has been a repeated problem, as well as try to make it so that the neck movement on both the top and the bottom have a little extra motion. I kind of figured out very early on that the reason they were having some issues was just that there was a little bit of too much material on both the top and the bottom here, and what I'm doing with the bottom of the helmet is I'm kind of sanding around the helmet so there's a little more spacing in between, because I don't want to mess with the ball peg too much, but just enough that it kind of gets a little extra motion, not just from up and down, front, side to side, and also a little better turning radius. What this also accomplished at the same time, though, is it actually makes the head stay on a lot better as well, because I also sanded off a little more material off camera here, off the top of the neck or off the sides, just beside the ball peg itself, so now the head fits a lot more snugly, it goes all the way down as it's supposed to, and everything moves a little better. As you can kind of see, it's a lot more of a smooth motion in general. The head does have a lot more ease of turning, and it isn't popping off at any point. The only thing I couldn't do here is really introduce too much side-to-side movement on the neck itself, and that's because, unfortunately, the hard plastic on the side is actually also exactly where the pins on the upper body are, so I can't really risk sanding that stuff any further kind of in and out without almost damaging the pins itself. So we're just going to deal with a little more vertical movement on there, but all in all, I'm still a lot happier with this than I was, just because the head now requires a good deal of force to pop off, and it's not just from movement itself. So hey, we still got an improvement there, or at least a decent fix. To help define the lines throughout the various parts of the figure, I'm actually using a French blue gray paint that was been watered down a bit in order to do that, rather than a pure black, because while I wanted to stand out, I wanted to still be a little more subtle for some shading that I'm going to attempt later. Now, it's worth noting that the French blue-gray paint that I use is not actually available anymore, but the nearest comparable color I could find from Liquitex is actually going to be their gray-blue, I believe it's called, which is give or take the same shade that should still be available in stores at this point. The gist of what I did overall is, between the watered-down paint as well as a little more airbrush medium to really thin it out, I kind of tried to make my own makeshift wash here in order to fill in the various crevices on both the helmet and the chest bits, especially where the scratches are. And when I overdid it, I wiped it down with a wet rag, or a paper towel in this case, in order to clear it off and keep it from becoming too blotchy. Although in hindsight, I really should have done it with some more isopropyl alcohol in order to really get the paint bits off where I overdid it. Something I remember to do later on, done on camera of course. Now, to explain a bit what I'm going to be attempting on camera here in this particular bit of footage, is I'm taking the same version of the kind of blue-gray color that I was using before, a little more watered down further in fact, and I'm going to be trying to emulate some of the shading stuff that you'll be seeing off the 3D model of the Dragon Ball FighterZ cooler figure, or cooler model I should say in this case. So basically you have the nice defined white, but then the next color is the same kind of blue-gray color that I've been using for the various crevices. And I was hoping to use this in order to kind of blend the crevices where it was a bit darker color, and kind of gradient into where it's going to be the lighter color, the shades of white. I'm going to be frank, I had middling success on this particular first run here, because as you kind of see, the original gray color, or the blended gray color, was still too opaque, meaning it was still too full, wasn't transparent enough. So it actually put on a bit too thick layers on various parts, and I actually had to go over with these bits a little more with a transparent white in order to really knock it back down. Kind of a happy accident though on the white bits, it actually also flanned it out, so instead of being a glossy plasticky white, it was a lot more muted in this case, so it looked like a little bit of matte layer had already been applied there, but still I have a little more work to do in order to fix that on and try to fix the gradients a bit more. On a more positive note, however, I was able to figure out a way to kind of remake the purple tone that was used on the main body, and as you can kind of see, it's a really good fit, quite frankly. So in order to help you with that, let me just tell you the recipe I used. which is using mostly a little mix of Createx Airbrush colors, as well as that one blue-gray that I mentioned earlier, which I also gave you the alternative to. Now, the recipe itself starts with a little bit of transparent red-purple as its main base. I added a few drops, I'm going to say like 2 or 3 of the white to kind of brighten up the color a bit because it's a little too dark naturally. And from there, in order to cool down the color, that's when I started adding a few extra drops of the blue-gray, mixing it in until I got the appropriate shade. Once I got about the right color, I'm actually going to be adding a little bit of airbrush medium in this case in order to kind of thin the paint out because the blue-gray made the paint a little more thick. And this will also help it so that it'll be able to be used in an airbrush or even just general thin paint line or paint application later on much easier when I'm going to bottle this up because I'm going to need to save this paint for later for touch-ups and other assorted things. I also took a bit of a failed first attempt on this one by adding a little bit of more gray paint and basically making what came out as a highlight tone. As you can see, it's a few shades higher than the main one, and with a little more thinning, probably could be brushed on to kind of hit the higher note. Alright, just to recap things up to this point, we managed to fix the head popping issue because that was literally an issue from day one. So now the head will actually stay in place as it's supposed to. We've expanded the movement on the neck for the most part, at least vertically I should say. Horizontally, well, there's issues with the figure itself that will just prevent that. There's not much I can do about that. And in terms of paint, we managed to address a little bit of the issues in terms of the details in the white not being visible, although the gradient's a little messy to be quite frank. I will address that later. And we managed to make a very good fit for the purple tone of the skin. So we have a lot to build on for the next one. Next episode is going to be us covering, kind of working on the shadows of that, as well as actually filling in those pinholes, because I actually figured out a pretty good way to do that, using some thermoplastic stuff in order to really blend things in. So we will definitely be covering how to do that, as well as doing the finishing paint job and get everything reassembled for the next episode. For now, catch you later though.